Yeah, so
you trained for a number of years before.
yes, and because of the many years, the training, by the way, was all one-on-one. There were probably no more than 3, 4 people who knew my real identity, and every time I had one-on-one training with a specialist, such as Morse code, encryption, and all that stuff, they would introduce themselves by name, and I would introduce myself with a different name, and you knew when they introduced themselves that was not their name, but that was a given. So yeah, and I came here in '78, really well trained and probably well equipped, because I'm not as smart as the predecessor in this chair. I know this.
None of us are either.
And I have a lot of respect for some of the smart people I worked with in IT. Like, for instance, I had the opportunity to work with a couple of guys who did AI, real AI, neural network-based AI in the 90s. Right? And like, wow, I could barely understand what they were doing. But anyway, I have what God gave me sort of is a lot of common sense. My wife has managed to turn this into, you got common nonsense. but you know, and that allowed me to like find my way in the U.S. I came here pretending to have been born here, and I succeeded. I fooled fundamentally the whole country, and you can only do that in New York City, by the way, because there is no crazy person that doesn't exist in another version in New York, right? So if I come here and have a little bit of an accent, yeah, that's all explainable. There's a gazillion accents in New York. If they had shipped me into Chicago, I probably would have failed.
You came with a birth certificate.
I did.
And as I recall, the first cascading or federation of that was for was it a library card?
Yeah, it's a long story. I was supposed to take that birth certificate and parlay this into a full set of American authentic documentation.
Passport being the holy grail.
Passport was the holy grail. The whole idea was once I got a passport, I was going to go back to Europe. They were going to set me up with a thriving business, and they knew how to do that. Funnel a lot of money into that business, come back into the U.S., and at that point, I'm in a situation in society where I have open access to, well, doors open, right? I can join a country club, I can meet people, you know, who are of interest. And that didn't work, but you know, I did manage to get my library card, driver's license, and social security card. So I was able to function, you know, operate.
The Social Security card's an interesting story, right? You said you were working off on a farm somewhere?
Yeah.
Upstate.
Well, in those days, there were some sections of the working population that were still exempt from the Social Security Administration. Employees of clergy, of churches, and so forth, and farm workers. So when I went for the interview, according to my birth certificate, I was 35 years old. And they asked me, so how come you don't have a Social Security card? I didn't need one. And I kept the answers very short. How come not? Did you ever work? Yes, I did. Okay, so what did you do? Well, I worked on a farm. So I had myself sort of like...
It was approved immediately, right?
Yes,
Worked
it
on a
was.
farm, got it.
Yeah, but I also managed to dumb down to a point where it was credible. You know, I walked in with dirty fingernails, not shaven, hair not washed, and I had wiped my eyes with a lot of soap until they were burning so hard, but they were red. Okay, so I literally walked in there like a country
Mark
bumpkin.
does that before he briefs the board.
Absolutely, every time.
Gives you more credibility, huh?
It sure does. And I like your comment of keeping it simple and don't talk too much.
Oh, you're so right about it. And once, this is one of my downfalls during my corporate career. I didn't know when to shut up. You know, instead of keeping it short, I would just give people a lengthy explanation, and I was mostly, you know, this is that rope that you hang yourself with as an IT guy.
Okay. Now, so once you had driver's license,
But
this was in the late 70s, early 80s, so
79,
79, 80 or so. What could you do at that point? Like, what, as a...
nothing, because I had, you know, I couldn't take my credentials with me. As I said, I had a master's in chemistry, then had become useless, so I had no work history. So I started working as a bike messenger. Nobody asked a question of somebody who says, you know, the only question was, can you ride a bike? I said, sure. And so it was crazy.
You got hurt when you got into the hospital. Were there some issues with who you were and how the medical bills paid? And that sort of
Well, in those days, you could actually pay your medical bills, and I paid cash. The Russians gave me enough money to handle that, but like I had a shoulder injury, I went to Cabrini, the emergency room, and they treated me, I paid them. It was really affordable.
A little different.
The one thing I was worried about in those days too, if I ever had to get operated on, I would be under, and I was worried about saying something in German.
Right.
So I avoided the operation. That shoulder is still dislocated.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.